intelligence and election. AI has become so common that it completes our sentences, suggests what to watch next, and sometimes even help us write emails faster than we can think. So today's big question is, if AI can do all this, can it also help make elections better? And most importantly, can it do so without compromising the trust, integrity, and fairness? With this spirit, let us begin the session. Now, may I please introduce you all the panel members present here today. We are honored to have Ms. Therese Pierce Lanela as our moderator. Ma'am has been recognized for experience across fields, headquarters, and policy levels of electoral administration. She was appointed as a founding member of International IDEA and later as Assistant Director of the Democracy Program at the Canton Center. Through IEPS, UNDP, and IDEA, the publication and the bridge curriculum were developed, including the ACE Electoral Knowledge Network. Post-war elections were organized in Mozambique in 1994, and Cambodia's first multi-party election was supervised in 1992 to 1993. Long-standing services as a presiding officer in Swedish election has been performed alongside observation mission in Africa, Europe, Asia for major organizations worldwide today. We welcome you, ma'am. Please give a big round of applause for Ms. Therese Pierce Lanela, ma'am. Well, joining with her on the panel is we have Alberto Fernandez Gebeza, sir. He is the head of the digitalization of democracy program at International IDEA, specializing in the intersection of technology and democracy. His work focus on both regulatory framework and the impact of technology on democratic processes and election. He has led a wide range of projects worldwide involving research, advocacy, and technical advisory services focused at the intersection of digitalization and democracy. He has published extensively in the international media on the impact of technology on democracy. Let us welcome this. Next, we have Mr. Antonius Penelli. Mr. Antonius Penelli is a senior election and democracy specialist with more than 30 years of experience in electoral policy, institutional design, and political participation across diverse regions and political contexts. His work focuses on strengthening the electoral integrity, inclusive representation, and the credibility of democratic processes. With particular expertise in external voting, migrant enfranchisement, electoral risk management, and emerging challenges such as digitalization and artificial intelligence. He has provided strategic policy advice to electoral management bodies, governments, and international actors, combining field-based experience with comparative research and normative analysis. We welcome you in the panel, sir, with a big round of applause. We are also honored to have Mr. Amin Mohammed Faiz, sir. Sir is the LLM attorney at law, is a senior legal practitioner in Sri Lanka with over 3 decades of experience in civil litigation, constitutional law, human rights, and public interest advocacy. He holds a Master of Laws from the University of Colombo, specializing in human rights, international humanitarian and administrative law. A civil and political activist, he has led initiatives in promoting dialogue, consensus building, and policy reform, including involvement in states' peace negotiation as a representative of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress. Since July 2022, he served as a member of the Independent Election Commission, contributing to electoral integrity, democratic governance, and minority rights. We welcome you, sir, in our panel discussion of artificial intelligence. Next, we have, as everybody knows, Ms. Seema Khanna, ma'am, Director General, IT, Election Commission of India. Dr. Seema Khanna is Director General, IT, Election Commission of India, and prior to that was Head of Cyber and Information Security in National Informatics Center. Under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, with a PhD in Information Security from IIT Delhi, she has over 3 decades of experience in information technology and cyber and information technology and cyber information security. She has been the leading critical initiative in cybersecurity, digital messaging, and national e-governance infrastructure for the government. She played a pivotal role in the rapid development and deployment of the Arogya Setu app, India's flagship COVID-19 contact tracing platform that was rolled out in just 3 weeks. As director in NIC, she has steered the National Knowledge Network, the largest network of its kind globally. In addition to cyber and information security, she has implemented and lead other key projects that include messaging service, the largest email service offered by any government globally. Parichay and Jan Parichay, the single sign-up platform of the government, and many more. We welcome you, ma'am, with a big round of applause. Now we are also privileged to have our speakers with us. Professor Ashok Acharya, Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. Ashok Acharya sir is a professor in Political Science, University of Delhi. His academic interests include contemporary and comparative political theory, Western and Indian political thought, ethics and governance, and Indian politics and institution. He has held several distinguished positions, including serving as the Henry Hart Prize visiting professor in Global Justice and South Asian Studies at Yale University. His recent scholarly contributions include work on affirmative action policy in India and the conclusion to COVID-19, the Global South and the pandemic's development impact. Professor Acharya is widely regarded for his rigorous scholarship and contribution to political theory and governance studies. We welcome sir to our panel with a big round of applause. So now, since we have such accomplished moderators and panels of the speakers, we look forward to a highly insightful and enriching discussion. Ma'am, please come, Seema ma'am. Yeah. Okay. Would you like to say something? Yes.
I want to get you on the stage as quickly as possible because our first speaker, I'm Therese, I have the great pleasure of moderating the session, but our first speaker is in a real hurry because she's going to launch an extraordinary feat of technology in a couple of minutes. So we're so blessed to have you here and best of luck with your launch straight after that.
Thank you. Can we have the PPT please on? Can somebody just work on that? All right, great. Like Teresa said, I apologize for a very hasty departure from this platform because I do have the ECINet launch and it's going to be such a pity that we're going to miss all of you in the room. I would have loved to have my co-panelists in the room. We are launching the largest technical platform globally of the largest democracy. Without much ado, since I don't have time to run through my presentation, I am going to leave, Bharti raised a question that said that, will AI be better for election? That's a hanging question in the room. I would leave you perhaps with further more hanging questions, which my co-panelists may tend to agree, not agree, which can be done during the course, but I don't have time to run. In the bare 5 minutes that I have over here, rather than running through the presentation, a thought has come to my mind. AI is surrounding us. Can any of us in the room say and ignore AI? None of us can. In my previous life in National Informatics Center, I was a practicing, I want of a better word, AI professional or whatever. And we were doing whatever we could. But when we talk about AI in elections, that's a different conversation. For the simple reason that AI in elections can change the course of a nation if used wrongly. Every data, AI is directly proportional to data. There's a story of a cow and a bison. Since I don't have time, again, I'm reiterating. I don't know how many of you know that cow and a bison belong to generally the same animal family, but with very different mindsets. I don't know which one would want to be what. When there's a storm coming, a cow generally walks away. It walks with the storm being behind it, with the wind force taking it towards the outer side. The bison, on the contrary, belonging to the same family, walks into the storm. It walks into the storm. Now, what's the difference between the two? Because the wind is behind the cow, he has to endure it for much longer. He's not that prepared to do it because whatever he's trying to think, the wind is blowing it out of proportion. It's trying to break him. The bison, on the contrary, is walking right into the storm. And he's going to exit the storm much sooner than a cow. What does it tell us? AI is the storm which none of us can ignore. It's up to us how we learn to navigate the storm. And the sooner we learn it, the better. With this, I wanted to cover a lot of things in today's presentation, but with the time set that I had, I just raised some poignant questions, which according to me are very important when we talk about AI in elections. And before I get into my slide, there's a slight disclaimer. Whatever you see on the slide is from Dr. Seema Khanna and does not reflect the views of the Election Commission. So please do not quote it anywhere as the views of the Election Commission. It's Seema and Seema alone, good, bad, ugly. So a few questions. AI, to use or not use? Obviously. The IT people in the room, Alberto would agree, use, right? The right way. That's the obvious answer. The challenge is not whether AI can be or should be used in elections, but the question is how. The next question, again, I'm leaving you with the question alone. Do we really need AI? We do need. But whether we are prepared to lead it responsibly, that's the hanging question. The next question, is AI responsible for the misinformation? The first thing that comes to mind when we talk about AI is misinformation. Oh my God, what's it trying to say? But is AI responsible for misinformation? No. Who makes the deep fakes? It's we humans. We are the weakest link. That's what I was telling Alberto a while ago. We are the weakest links. We make the deep fakes. What AI does it accelerates it. If humans, the Chinese whisper is the strongest way to communicate, at machine level, it's catastrophic. So what AI only does is accelerates what we are trying to do. So AI does not generate the misinformation. The other hanging question, is AI about technology? No, it's not about technology. It's about leadership choices. Every data comes with a bias. Every data comes with a story. It's what you feed in, is what you get out. It's the interpretation of that data that distinguishes a good leader from a bad one. The interpretation of what you're trying to do with that. The next question, what AI changes for leaders? The AI shifts how you operate, how you lead. Because you have so much data, you've got a humongous amount of data. You have to make your choices. So leaders have to pick that. They have to change how they operate. AI accelerates outcomes, good or bad, depending on leadership quality. The other question, how AI changes the cyber risk landscape. It was a nightmare in my previous life. It's everywhere. It's surrounding us. We choose to use AI or not. Our enemies sure would. They're going to use it to the best of their ability to make our life miserable. So you can only battle AI with AI. If you're trying to expect a human to battle with AI, forget it. It's not likely to happen. So how you battle it is what is the question here. The same AI that protects us can be used against us. I don't know how many of you have ever used something like an EDR, Sentinel. You've heard of the CrowdStrike story. You've all heard of that, of the IT people in the room. So it's how it can be used against you. That's another question. Another question, the leadership imperative. It's all about the leaders, all about the people who are leading and who choose to use AI. Lead AI. Don't let AI lead you. That's going to be a key distinction between how leaders interpret data and allow it to be used. The future belongs to leaders who combine human judgment with machine intelligence. That's the only way to navigate our future, because you cannot ignore AI. You can love it, you can hate it, but you can definitely not ignore it. AI is no longer a future discussion, it's a leadership reality. It's a statement. There's a lot of English on the slide, which I don't have time to go through, but it is no longer up for debate. It's there to stay. Clarity of intent. AI has the potential to shape the future of elections. It's a tool, and the goal is not to stop technology, but to protect democracy. I would just end quickly by saying elections are decided by people. Leadership ensures technology never decides for them. So AI, it's there to stay. A quick takeaway, it's there to stay. It's how we navigate this storm. I would prefer to be a bison. I'm sure all the people who are handling AI would love to be a bison and not the cow, where they're left hanging and really don't know what to do with the storm surrounding us. I would quickly end here. Again, I would miss you in the IICDEM launch. More power to the people like us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you so much.
Best of luck, Seema.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll be there. We'll all be there with you in spirit. That's great. Next, we will channel our inner bison, I would say. So I have the great pleasure of working with Alberto, and he's been heading into the storm, and he's going to present that this, as Seema just said, this is something we need to navigate, and we all want to benefit from the efficiencies and the scaling up possibilities of data and research use, and the opportunity to unlock our creativity. We're all into that, but we're also really worried. And so Alberto and his team have been keeping an eye on the early adopters, seeing how it's going, and trying to untangle what we know and what we don't know at this point. So this will be an overview presentation, and handing over to you.
Thank you, Therese. I will consider myself a Toro because I'm from Spain rather than a Python, but it's an honor to be referred as such an animal. So as Therese said, I'm going to try to speak a little bit about the AI journey of electoral management bodies. As heading international IDEA work on digitalization and democracy, I'm trying not to break my iPad or the computer. We constantly get questions from electoral management bodies about this. And I think it's important to clarify certain issues and try to get a view of everything. So the first question is, why are we talking about AI? I don't know if there is, I hope there is no any AI engineer so I can play the role of expert here. Why are we talking about AI? What has changed? Because this is actually a field that is like 50 years old. Scientists have been working on this for 50 years. Two things have changed in recent years. The first one is a paper published in 2017 called "Attention is All You Need." Sounds like a Beatles song. That paper introduced something called the transformers architecture. In very simple terms, again, if there is any AI engineer here, like cover your eyes for a second. In very simple terms, transformers architecture is a way to look at input. So when you go to ChatGPT and write something, instead of reading it linearly, what it does is look where the attention has to be. That, in a very complex way, gets into the new capabilities of artificial intelligence. But we also have something new, something that we didn't have a few years ago, which is availability of data and computing power. So the second part of the revolution comes from there, because we have digitalized all of our lives. We have billions and billions and billions of data points. But so far, I mean, up until recently, we didn't have the capacity to go through them. It was too much information. We didn't have the computing power to actually understand them. But that has also, we have gotten there. We have the computer power now. If you are familiar with the Moore law, means like every 2 years, we double the amount of microprocessor we can put on a semiconductor. We now have the computer power. We now have the data, and we have the way to read it. So here we are speaking about artificial intelligence. But what does it change for an EMB? Well, there are a few implications that EMBs need to have in mind. The first one is that it will impact everything. As Dr. Sima say, we can't ignore it. We can't just run away from it. We need to be the bison and go towards it. EMBs are the guardians of huge amounts of data. And I think we are in the country that has the most amount of data anywhere in the world when it comes to EMBs. It opens amazing opportunities. There is so many things that can be done, but only if we do these things right. And again, I want to refer to Dr. Sima's presentation. It is not about the technology. This has never been about the technology. It's about what we do with it. It's the human factor what matters. Otherwise, we will just have ChatGPT here writing like how EMBs manage electoral, how EMBs manage artificial intelligence, and read the answer and do that. It's never about the technology. It's about the humans here. So let's unpack a little bit things, and let me bring you what we have learned from speaking with electoral management bodies from all over the world in the last couple of years about this. So here you have a list of potential applications of artificial intelligence. This is a list we did like a couple of years ago, which in AI times means this is ancient content. But when we're starting working on this, the first thing we did was, let's think about potential applications. Let's not think about the technology. Let's think, what can we do with this? And let's see if there are actually real uses that we can bring to the table for electoral management bodies. Some of these users are here. Imagine some countries are already doing this. You use artificial intelligence systems to go through your voter list. They can find mistakes. They can find repetitions. They can find inaccuracies. If you have a very well-established interoperability between your databases in the country, they can cross-check with other databases and see if the data is correct. You can use it for social media misinformation monitoring. Very risky, but it can help electoral management body to get a little bit of that sentiment analysis. What is social media talking about? And are they talking about the EMB? And in which way are they talking about the EMB? I remember a few years ago in a very small nation in Latin America that they did social media monitoring by force. They basically had a bunch of people like reading Facebook, Twitter, or different social media channels and just trying to understand what's going on. And yeah, that wasn't very effective. And it was a very, very tiny nation. You can also use it for post-electoral audits. There is a country using AI, experimenting with using AI to read invoices. So they go through the invoices of parties. They have created a model that can read those invoices and then see if there is anything to be concerned about, if there has been any violation of political finance legislation, and so on. So this is what we thought. But then we ask EMBs, what are you actually doing? Because, as I said, time in AI goes very, very fast. So when we finish our thinking process, we were already seeing electoral management bodies doing things. And these are the 5 things that are already being implemented. Some countries are already using AI systems to do things in this area. And most of the uses that you can see, not all, but most of the uses are actually not things you can do directly with the tools we are all used to, which is like large language models. You write something and they tell you something. They're called discriminatory models. And discriminatory is not a nice word, but what it means is that they don't actually talk to you. They just give you results. They go through data and they change, like they analyze things, and then they will flag you whatever you have, the information you want to have. Some EMBs are doing voter information on campaigns. This is usually using chatbots, are creating content. Many of them are using AI to face the wave of cybersecurity AI-driven attacks. I think I don't need to add anything to what Dr. Sim already said. Biometric voter identification and registration, this is very important. Ethically concerning, because facial recognition is something that has to be done with a lot of safeguards, but some countries are already doing this. Social media monitoring and sentiment analysis, I already explained this possibility. And managing data and results. Sometimes maybe getting these first results, these unofficial first results, through AI, reading, using optic identification to read votes, that type of things. So these are uses that are already happening, which means that we are already in the risk territory. We already have uses, and we need to address the risks that those users have. And if you remember anything from my presentation, make it this thing, this slide. Let me focus on 4 risks, or let me try to compile everything on 4 risks. The first one is accuracy. AI is not 100% accuracy, but elections need to be 100% accurate. We don't have, and we might never have, AI systems that are 100% accurate, that they will never make a mistake. And this has to be written on top of like the entrance of an EMB or the IT department of an EMB for any use of technology in general, but any use of artificial intelligence. Anything has to be designed with this in mind. You will never get 100% accuracy, and that has implications. The second one, this is getting better and better with time. And I always advocate that this shouldn't be the only focus, but there is still human rights problems, fundamental rights problems, bias, and discrimination. The right to privacy, it's probably the main one, but also issues of giving wrong information, or in the Netherlands, they saw that people were asking for voting advice, and large language models were mostly recommending the 2 main parties because those are the ones that have more information. So there's going to be bias, there's going to be discrimination. We need to, any use we do, we need to have this in mind and build safeguards. Trust and transparency. Trust is the currency of elections. The last thing I read recently, trust is built on drops, but loose in buckets. AI might be the way to lose all the trust on the EMB in a bucket. And suddenly, like years and years of building slowly that trust gone away in one mistake. And this is also important because you need to be transparent about it. EMBs need to be transparent. This is the system. Ideally, you should allow people to audit the system as much as possible. But you also need to recognize there is no way to audit the whole system. AI systems are not interpretable. We don't know, there's no way to know how they go from your input to an output. So you need to communicate that to the population. There is no way to know why they took a decision. But we have measures in place, and I will talk about these measures later. And the last one is cybersecurity. And I'm of the theory that we are one cybersecurity incident away from transforming all these conversations about cybersecurity. As Dr. Sima say, you have a lot of AI helps you a lot on cybersecurity, but there is also, it's helping a lot the enemies of elections. So this needs to be reinforced definitely a lot. But elections are not only about the EMB. If elections were only the EMB, then we wouldn't have to discuss anything. They will all work very well. Elections are about candidates and people voting and campaigns as well. And the EMBs are in a difficult position because they need to manage this, and they need to understand how the people not working at the EMB might make problems for the elections. My colleague will talk a little bit more in detail about this, but I just want to highlight three very interconnected issues. Threats that come from others using artificial intelligence. The first one is personalized information and manipulation. AI, in 2024, all the democracy community was freaking out. We were thinking this is the end of democracy because AI will make impossible to distinguish truth and so on. And then that didn't happen. That didn't happen because what AI does to our information is marginal. It's marginal improvements. It changed slightly the process. But influence is not that easy. Influence is not just getting a deepfake online. It's built upon time. What concerns me is that building capacity that liberal parties and people wanted to manipulate information environment are getting with AI. What it's called the AI slop. They can flood our information environment with AI. And it's not going to be deep fakes. I mean, it's going to be deep fakes, but it's not going to be trying to make you believe something has happened that hasn't happened. It's going to be using AI to reinforce points. So they might use a video that is clearly fake of the head of IMB being arrested. And everybody knows it's fake, but it's just reinforcing the narrative that the EMB, it's a criminal, you can't trust them. And we also have a lot of challenges with the solutions we tend to propose. It's very difficult. Synthetic content is impossible to detect. It's very difficult to mark, to label. So we are in a pretty bad situation right now when it comes to that. And that, if it's direct to the EMB, will erode the trust in the process. And it can be very easily done. And it can also increase discrimination. It can also be used to increase and to threaten and suppress participation through intimidation, through images of cows at voting posts, through videos showing, trying to build a narrative that traditionally marginalized communities should not be voting and so on. I always use this concept. What it does is enlarging the Overton window. The Overton window is what is acceptable in the public square, what we are okay to talk about in public. If you enlarge this, what you're bringing is more and more radical and discriminatory voices into the discussion. What do we do? And I will go very fast here, and if you want more details on all this, just please ask. There are certain things we can already do. First, Adhere to the principles of necessity, data minimization, and proportionality. Use the data you need, minimize the data you use, and only use data that is proportional to the results that you are getting. So don't get people, I don't know, hate data if you're just making a list of where people live. Focus on marginalized communities. Those are the ones that are going to suffer first. They're already suffering. So focus some of your actions on them. Always, always, always place a human in the loop when possible. It's demanding, but we always need to have a human taking the final decision. Never get a system to take the decision, AI system. Audit the systems all the time. Make auditors like rich people by auditing AI systems all the time, or create units internally that can audit those systems that are working in the right way. Many AI systems keep evolving their training, and they might work at the beginning, but they will eventually stop working well. So you need to audit all the time. Work with local officials, with community, with civil society to identify how AI is being used for disinformation. Engage the tech companies carefully, but engage them. Hold campaigns accountable. It shouldn't be free to just use AI to distort the information environment. Hold them accountable as much as the mandate of the EMB allows you to. And again, the last thing, so we don't get into that situation of only talking about cybersecurity, start now building cybersecurity capabilities within the EMB, or collaborate with the units of the government that have those capabilities, because it's going to come eventually. And every single EMB needs to be ready. And with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity and welcome the conversation. Thank you, Therese.
Thank you so much, Alberto. And we'll move now to my colleague, Antonio. Welcome to the platform, and just check if your presentation is there. And Antonio's been working for 35 something more years in electoral processes, and has seen the way that data that is used about the voter has changed from something that is very slowly passed from the voter to the election authority and back again. And now we're dealing with voters' data on a scale that we haven't before. And those who have biometrics are sitting with incredibly valuable information that many, many, many people have. And this is an incredible concern from privacy commissions and so forth on how that data is taken care of. So Antonio, you've seen this journey, and we really look forward to hearing about these ethical dilemmas that we'll be facing in the election management community.
Thank you. I have to apologize because I'm low in voice, but I'll do my best. So it works. So I will start by describing the disruption that didn't materialize, that did not arrive. So if we go back to the 2024 and 25 super election cycle, back then artificial intelligence was widely portrayed as a disruptive force capable of distorting voter choice, overwhelming institutions, and decisively interfering with electoral outcomes. So these expectations shaped public debate, raised very widespread concerns, and drove to a heightened sense of institutional urgency and emergency. So what followed, however, did not match these projections. So elections during these 2 years proceeded without the anticipated moment of visible breakdown, and rather than dramatic interference, AI influence has been more muted and indirect. So this presentation starts from an analysis between the gap between the expectations and evidence. So I argue that the most consequential effect of AI on elections are not found in overt manipulations of votes, but in quieter pressures on trust and institutional legitimacy. So if we take stock of the 2024-2025 election cycles, we can see that this period marked an unprecedented concentration of national electoral events worldwide. And so this period offers a rare empirical basis on for us to assess AI actual impact on electoral processes. So, as I said, early concerns focus on deepfakes and the production of synthetic media content as potential threats to electoral integrity. Now, in 2026, we can look back and shift the focus from anticipation of these threats to their assessments. And so this moment allows for a more grounded evaluation of what changed, what did not, and where the most credible risks are beginning to shape. So one pattern emerged consistently from assessing the past electoral cycles, and this that AI generated content has become a persistent feature of electoral processes. And not only of the process, but of their information environments. And as we show in Alberto's slides presentation, it is present across the different stages of an election, pre, during, and post, and in all operations. So at the same time, this persistence did not translate into decisive effects affecting voter behavior or affecting electoral outcomes. So the very much feared AI electoral rupture or catastrophe did not materialize, and its measurable impact remain limited. So this implication the implication is not that these risks are absent, but that they've been mischaracterized. So the challenge posed by AI lies less in immediate disruption than in how sustained low-level information pressure reshapes electoral environments over time. So what it has actually changed. So what I just said should not be taken as a reassurance that risks posed by AI on elections are static. So the deepfake technology continues to advance very fast, to improve, to become more realistic. It's cheaper to produce, faster to spread, and much harder to detect. But the core risk is not sophistication of persuasion, but scale, speed, and volume of AI misinformation. So AI enables mass production of misleading content that accumulates over time. And so this information operates through repetition and saturation, which are progressively filling and polluting electoral information environments, and amplifying fake narratives and distorting public debate. So what is emerging, what pressure is emerging now? So far, we have, there is limited evidence that AI has been systematically used to undermine electoral legitimacy. There are cases, but remain isolated and are not indicative of a broader pattern. So the more significant issue is forward-looking. So AI expands the space of what is considerable acceptable and contestable in public discourse, and through sustained content production, AI can place cumulative pressure on trust in the EMB and the electoral process that the EMB delivers, even when it's clear that legitimacy of the elections and the EMB are very strong. So, so at the same time, there are new distortions that are emerging in how voters access, consume, digest electoral information, including the growing relevance that large language models are having for voting-related queries. And so these dynamics suggest emerging and plausible future pressures rather than an impending crisis, but they underline the need for early awareness and early preparation by the electoral management bodies. In terms of what can be done, so the experience of 2024 and 2025 of the two cycles offers both reassurance and warning at the same time. Reassurance because AI has not decisively undermined elections, and warning because the structural conditions for future harm remain in place. So, so clearer ethical AI frameworks, robust regulations, and voluntary guardrails can help define acceptable and ethical use of AI in electoral context. Protecting truth in political advertising can also enable enable voters to distinguish legitimate competition from deceptive narratives. Stronger moderation and detection can reduce the scale and the persistence of AI-generated disinformation. And very importantly, greater investment in digital literacy and critical thinking can improve how citizens engage and with misleading content, synthetic content, and can enable them to distinguish what is false and what is true. Responsible AI adoption by EMBs can limit legitimacy risks while supporting core institutional, operational, procedural, and functions of the EMBs. And finally, stronger platform self-regulations, in addition to regulation, but also self-regulations, can reduce the reach and the durability of harmful content in electoral environments. So what can we conclude from all these? So we conclude that AI has not fundamentally changed how electoral manipulation works, but it has significantly lowered the threshold for sustaining disruption in the information electoral environments over time. So the core, as we stand today, the core democratic risk remains erosion of trust in electoral processes rather than voter persuasions. And we need to be remembered that electoral legitimacy is far easier to weaken than it is to restore once it's lost, the drop in the buckets that Alberto mentioned. So in electoral information context, scale and persistence matter more than sophistication. So the volume increasingly outweighs the precision of targeting and messages used by deceptive actors. We can also conclude that we know that electoral management bodies alone cannot address these legitimacy attacks that they are subject to. And institutional resilience now depends on coordinated ecosystem-wide responses. We should look at this as a major crisis in a way similar to the pandemic. So electoral management bodies were able to efficiently overcome the running elections under the pandemic by interagency cooperation, by joining forces with other entities. And so regulatory lag and even uneven platform practices should be understood as strategic vulnerabilities and not simply as technical or governance shortcomings. And so we need to say that, while the window for preventive action has been open and remains open, it is clearly narrowing now. And because AI technology diffuse and become more normalized and more difficult to detect. And lastly, the central question for future election is no longer whether AI will matter, but whether EMBs can adapt faster than those seeking to exploit it, and turning AI from a potential or real threat into an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antonio. And just picking up on the points that you made about the ways forward, of those ways forward, not all of them were in the sphere of what the EMB can manage alone, which is what you said in point 4 on your last slide, which is an ecosystem that needs to be fostered. And this, of course, has implications for election management body when the election management body itself can't handle both the digital literacy, the truth in political advertising, and regulation. So it demands some kind of new interagency cooperation with agencies we didn't know before, as in the pandemic when we had to suddenly cooperate with public health agencies. So navigating that interagency cooperation is going to be part of the election management journey in the future, but also the work with civil society and influencers and those who have influence in those groups that are being most affected, the groups that Alberto pointed out. All this is playing out in the ground. I have the great pleasure of bringing up Commissioner Amir Faiz from Sri Lanka. And those who have heard him speak know that he brings not only his wisdom as a commissioner, but also a philosophical and deeply human rights anchored approach to his way of interpreting this moment that we are in at the moment. We really look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. If you have carefully or cared to note what was said about me in the introduction, there's nothing about AI. And having posted on the podium, sitting with the experts who have been living the life of AI throughout, and I was just wondering what I was going to do or what I was supposed to do. Then to compound that, I made a mistake with regard to timing because my narrative is going to be a narrative text, and then that's a bit longer. So I'll not bother with all that. So I'll try to, most of the issues have been covered by both Alberto and Antonio, easy names, right? Okay, Alberto and so nevertheless, and then they have also offered certain way forward. But the thing is whether that way forward works. And if I may bring my 2 years of experience as election management body representative who had dealt with 2+ elections and how we do it, and also a little earlier than that is, EMBs are also supposed to provide a level playing field for the candidates. I'm not going into the positives. Yes, AI has come to stay, and AI, everybody, including EMBs, need to use AI for their betterment. So there are lots of positives, but then with the positives, it also throws a lot of vulnerabilities, right? So in that context, my intervention is going to be a little erratic and not coherent, but let's see what we can do. I mean, if I may just put certain points, the very technologies that enable efficiency and scale also introduce new vulnerabilities. They reduce transparency through algorithmic opacity, concentrate power in the hands of technically sophisticated actors, and deepen asymmetries not only between institution and global platforms, but most worryingly between citizens themselves. In this sense, AI does not arrive in a neutral institutional vacuum. It enters societies already shaped by inequality, uneven access to technology, the weak regulatory capacity. It is this intersection that digital divide ceases to be merely a development concern and becomes a direct threat to electoral integrity. Everyone spoke about the trust that can be dented, but that's where it comes from. So, no, and it also deals with EMBs as well as voters' resources and access to technology. Let's say, let's frame it broadly. So, when we speak about the digital divide, we often reduce it to questions of access. Who has internet connectivity, who owns smartphone, and who can make use of digital services in the context of elections. However, the divide runs much deeper. It's not simply about access to technology, but about power over information. And it's more so striking or more so influencing in our region, right? Where the access to information or access to technology, it's not so prevalent. And when it is not so prevalent and when it is allowed to be used, it can also raise questions whether the state is also facilitating discrimination. So these are the things that one needs to be mindful. A relatively small number of actors can now produce hyper-localized disinformation, generate synthetic audio, video, and documents, convincingly mimic trusted institutions and individuals, and flood entire information ecosystem at a speed far beyond the capacity of human moderation. This we have witnessed. And I'm not going to go into details which I have written down, but this happens. And also, if I may say, excuse me, in our part of the world where perceived, I'm using perceived because I don't subscribe to all the cultures and norms. And with the advent of AI, the social media in particular, the women folks have been at the receiving end more than the men. Because from an election management perspective, as well as the human rights perspective, we have been advocating, including affirmative action for women's political participation. And what happens is you bring in laws to enable women to secure certain quota, and then to satisfy that, women need to be nominated as candidates. And the easy target are the women. So how do we manage now and also before going then the structural concern, I'm just skipping a few things so that if necessary we can also talk later. The structural concern that is often under discussed in conversation about AI and elections, the profoundly asymmetric nature of technology governance today. Global digital platforms operate seamlessly across jurisdictions, control proprietary algorithms, set their own content moderation standards, and possess unparalleled reserves of data and artificial intelligence capacity. Election commissions, by contrast, operate strictly within national legal frameworks, are bound by constitutional obligations of neutrality, exercise limited enforcement powers, and often lack in-house technical expertise at the scale required to match these platforms. This imbalance is not simply a regulatory mismatch, it's a democratic vulnerability. When the protection of electoral integrity depends largely on the voluntary cooperation of private technology companies, public authority is inevitably weakened. When the very tools used to detect and mitigate harm are owned by the same actors who profit from digital engagement, lines of accountability becomes dangerously blurred. The outcome is a condition of institutional dependency without institutional control. Right. So, so similarly, I think I'm not too sure how I'm doing with time. So, then again, when it comes to platforms, I mean, most in the room would have also noticed about. I mean, it's about. I will limit it to the hateful campaign or harmful content, as we call it, which has hate, which has racial tones and all that. And how do we encounter that? The moment you raise it up with a big platform, they come up with community standard. And this community standard are set by people who do not know the culture, within quote, do not understand the local settings, do not understand the language. And then how do we deal with it? I mean, this is something that we had, then the entire, in Sri Lankan experience, if I may recall, we brought in civil society collaboration with the EMB, Election Commission, and through them, we expected to have some influence over some of the tech platforms. But it did not work, because what happens is every time with the technology, we had to react. There's no way of preventing harmful content coming into the open public stream. So, and when you deal with them, then it becomes again a market issue. And I don't need to say, I mean, a request going from a country that has 100 billion or 1 billion, one consumers, as opposed to a little Sri Lanka with 20 million, the companies are not going to be bothered. So how do we do? So, I mean, I've been also advocating at platform where we need to come up with regional cooperation, right? Where when Sri Lanka makes an appeal, it needs to be backed up by a regional kind of let's say, then otherwise, because I mean, everybody, both, and then Alberto know about engaging with platforms, regulatory issues and all that, but then it doesn't work in practice, because by the time a post is asked to be removed, the damage is done, and it takes about two. So for example, last time we had issues, and at least we had someone known sitting in Singapore managing the Meta. So it had to be a personal thing, personal request. Even then, we had an entire room of civil society, political actors, and EMB making a request. Finally, one has to take the risk and say, then the question was asked, can we remove this post and attribute it to the request by the Election Commission of Sri Lanka, right? As I said, Election Commission decision has to be made through consultation, keeping. But then we had to take a risk, and I said, yes, go ahead. And then it was striking to see some of the posts are removed, and there is very, very funnily a post displayed, the content has been removed at the specific request of the Election Commission of Sri Lanka, right? And the justification is that they want to cover themselves from legal responsibility. I mean, it's okay. So these are the things that one needs to come to deal with it, and we need to be mindful, and we would be more than willing to learn as to how do we do that part of it, because that's been our issue. So just to conclude, say, and one final point that is often overlooked in discussion of artificial intelligence and elections, AI governance is not only about safeguarding integrity, it's fundamentally about inclusion. Rural voters with limited digital literacy and elderly citizens who rely heavily on messaging and applications, linguistic minorities who are often targeted, are impacted quite differently by these issues. So let me just conclude with one simple proposition. Artificial intelligence will shape elections whether we choose to act or not. The real choice before us is whether democratic institutions will shape how AI is deployed, regulated, and constrained, or whether elections will gradually adapt to technologies whose logic is commercial, opaque, and deeply unequal. Electoral integrity in the age of AI, therefore, rests on three essential foundations: institutional capacity to understand and deploy technology responsibly, regulatory courage to assert public authority over powerful private platforms, and democratic humility to ensure that technology serves citizens rather than the other way around. Neutrality does not mean silence, and integrity does not mean inaction. And in an AI-mediated public sphere, democracy must once again learn how to govern power, this time, technological power. If we fail, elections may still be held, but they will no longer perform their most essential democratic function. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I knew you would bring a philosophical bent, and I just wanted to pick up on a few of the things that you said. And one was you echoed Alberto's points about looking most closely at the most marginalized. And if we recall what Seema said, what Dr. Seema said, she said, use AI for the things that you have a problem with AI. And there, this post-election analysis that Alberto also mentioned is really key, is that who is being affected and how? What is this voter experience? And now we have this extraordinary tool to collect that data to develop the kind of regulations or guidance that will help, especially those most marginalized. And one of those things that can be done that's been mentioned a couple of times, whether it's been called truth in advertising that Antonio said, or whether it was the takedown experience that you just described. But this is terrifying for any agency, but in particular for election management bodies who need to be nonpartisan. So the idea that it is you who is deciding what gets taken down and what doesn't get taken down is really, really a scary place to be. And so being on the absolutely front foot of what you are advising gets taken down, or what you get stamped on, or whatever agreement it is that you make, but be on the absolute front foot, because getting that wrong puts you in some really dangerous political territory. So that's really good advice that you have there. And finally, you brought up something that others haven't yet, and that is that in this information environment, it crosses national borders. For those of you living in a huge country here, you might not notice it as much, but for those of us who live in smaller countries, we see that information crosses border. Diaspora live in other places and may influence back, and we have influence from other countries on our own countries. And so this idea of transnational cooperation is something that is also very, very much on the agenda, and maybe speaks to what we're doing here today. With that, I would like to call on our next speaker to come up. I hope that you all agree that in these sessions, the way that the organizers of this conference have designed it, it's just been this really lovely mix of practitioners and academics. And this academic perspective has just brought a theoretical touch to it, and a thoughtfulness, and kind of created order in some of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I'm really looking forward to. You've been hyped, and I'm really looking forward to what you have to say. Thank you so much, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here and to be, getting to know and meet people from the different EMBs. And also, I hope as an academic, I don't spoil the party here. And in the sense that, I would deviate a little bit from the crispness of the knowledge that has been shared so far, in terms of very excellent points that, okay, so this is what AI can do and AI cannot do. I will share as an academic, but as a kind of a very messy, chaotic academic, some of the worries that I think I carry with me, and some of the worries that I think I bring from the perspective of my students with whom I do engage with some of these discussions, hoping that this will act as some sort of a feedback to what we are discussing today, among many other things that this conference is discussing. So, first of all, I don't wish to repeat all that has been said so far. I guess one of the things that we have already stressed out, and very clearly, is that it's a mixed blessing, that it has its problems. AI poses problems, and also AI also can give us the solutions to get beyond and get past such problems. Yes, I agree with them, and that is for that reason I don't think I would even spend time on some of these, these slides, except to say that, that AI brings about a certain kind of a disruptive uncertainty that was unknown hitherto to all democracies everywhere. But if you know the directions in which democracies are going today, there is a lot of alarm, not because of AI, but because of how democracies can, disrupt the lives of people, and as our friend from Sri Lanka, already said that, there are systems that then feed on existing inequalities and then can make things worse. And let me also say that at this point of time that my for all the EMBs, and especially in the global south, I would say, they are spread thin in terms of just conducting elections all the time, around the year, and hardly have resources to actually take care of some of those big Herculean tasks that we have assigned to ourselves. It's a huge problem. This is one issue on which, so even while we are trying to think about, party funding, election funding, and all those things, the truth is that our EMBs don't have enough funds to even take up one such challenge such as AI and to devise, strategies of trying to, preempt all such wrongs that might arise from the negative impact of AI. So, for instance, there is a blockchain technology, for instance, that can, that can be harnessed. But, for instance, for a think tank like IIDEM, maybe you have some of those funds to do it, but most of our EMBs may not. Okay, you know that. Okay, so, okay, all right. I will not go into much details of this. These are again some of the, the good and bad things that go with AI. But I will here somewhere come down to, I will not even cover all the points here. But I want you to think about something, and two things mainly. One is, a lot of you would congratulate yourself, and this is not something to do with AI. Enough has been spoken on that, but a little bit more on democracy, which is what I want to reflect on, because that has a bearing on what I have to say, has a bearing on how we look at this present problem. One is that many of us would like to congratulate ourselves whenever we conduct elections in any country, that the rate of voting participation has gone higher this time. And we try to congratulate ourselves. Most democracies do that, unmindful of the fact that democracies, the success of a democracy is not measured solely in terms of participation, but also in terms of contestation of power. Democracies mean nothing only if we keep recording how many people voted this year and that year. If that were true, USSR would have been the biggest living democracy today with a 98.2 or 99% of voting, right, when it was a socialist. So it is this particular thing is missing. So even while we try to look at this, and not just look at participation, but can AI help people contest, or challenge those who are in power, or even their own representatives for that. And so civic education cannot be a very, sleek exercise where we only teach citizens these are your virtues and these are not. Look at how citizens look at this whole thing, and including my own students. And I teach, a big batch of MS students, probably the biggest in this world. Like every year we get around 700 students in political science for the master's program, right? So it's a huge course. And within that, when I do this ethics and governance to them and make them do group projects on this AI ethics, AI, democracy, and all those things. And I find that most of them do echo something that most citizens also echo, and that is that most political systems, and this is a truth, nobody would dispute that, are controlled by the rich and the powerful. At times, this land, Greenland, or, blue land is snatched away from us at the drop of a hat, and we know when we don't know what's going on. So the rich and the powerful control us, and this has a huge implication for how democracies are run today. But what worsens this, and I will come to that, in a bit, and that is, for a long time, democracy has been hijacked by experts, the managers, so to say, the managers. That hijacking has now been widened to include some of the new experts now, the AI experts. And with that hijacking, democracy has been somewhat removed from the people, as it were. So can we, with, using this as a kind of so it's, democracy is not about the rule of reason as such. Although we try to parade ourselves with reason, saying that, I know, how to fix this problem. This is how we do it here, and this is how it can be done everywhere. But no, that's not the problem. How it's the bigger challenge is, how do we take it back to the people and make them use AI, not as a craft, but of course, use it as a tool to increase the art of political judgment. And it's not just human judgment. I'm talking about the art of political judgment, which has been lost. And even I'm thinking along these lines at this point of time. And I'm still trying to, so there are students who are still trying to develop some apps based on this, as to how do we enhance the skills of political judgment of an ordinary citizen anywhere in the world. And especially in the global south, where we have been, we just don't have the resources to invest so much on AI and all those things. I hope, that mine has not been a diatribe or a kind of criticism of all these discussions. I'm very much invested in all these things. However, I still think that, both the things need to be taken into account. One, not just as to how AI can enrich democracy, but how can we enrich democracy with or without AI is another thing that I'm thinking about, maybe through more deliberative forums and all those things. What are the other alternatives whereby we make democracy, in true sense of the term, a rule of the people? I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you mentioned, well, besides bringing it up to a level up here about what democracy means and where we'll be going and using technology to enrich it. But I wanted to pick up on what you said about disruptive uncertainty, which is really what election management bodies are living through, from the pandemic through extreme weather. I think many of you have been experiencing extreme heat here in India, for example, but in other parts of the world, floods and forest fires at this very moment. And for those of you who are here from Europe, we now have war on our continent, which is really affecting elections as well, with millions of people on the move. And those, yeah, in Europe, among other places. And so with this disruptive uncertainty, what we're really seeing is a necessary reimagining of what election management is. It isn't just planning for something that is predictable. It is planning for something that is actually unpredictable. And this demands new mindsets, new skill sets. And I think that's what we are as a community exploring right now. And part of that is what you just mentioned, Professor, which is going back to the people. A lot of these, the anger that citizens are feeling, perhaps because of the disinformation that they are being fed, it appears at the front lines, as did COVID, as does extreme weather. It's our temporary election workers who are working, our booth officers, as you call them here, or booth personnel. And so empowering those front lines to be able to handle the anxieties of voters or the candidates where they are is, I think, something that we're facing as a field right now as we reimagine this field. How do we strengthen their ability to handle what hits them there? But also this need to cooperate with new agencies that we mentioned before. That's part of this reimagining in this disruptive uncertainty. and new habits. Instead of just planning for something that's predictable, being able to understand or collectively get a sense of the risks that are there, building up the resilience to be able to handle those, having crisis management systems in place, knowing that something for sure will go wrong. So those are some of the habits that are entering into our field at the moment. And I really encourage you to go to the risk management session this afternoon, a bit of a plug for that one. With that, we have a few moments. I just want to thank you all so much. And we can definitely see some threads here. Monitoring this space closely. There's work for regulation, for interagency cooperation, for keeping our eye on how this impacts the most marginalized. With that, I'd like to open for perhaps 2 questions, perhaps, and then we can see how we go. Oh, there's so many, and I will let you decide. I'll let our colleagues decide.
Thank you, madam. I am National Master Trainer from Odisha. I am Additional Secretary to Higher Education Department. As Rekha madam told about that, that is a human tool. That is an emerging human tool for AI, and there's no doubt you can use it in the electoral process or not. That depends on you, because it's the human tool you use as you like. That is a factor. But human interference is the most important things in electoral system. But I want to put one question. If you not use AI, yes, in the electoral system you cannot use this AI, because there is certain things are there. There's just certain misuse or certain thing there. But the political people, as you know, as AI is the emerging technology, and the political parties will definitely use it, and they definitely manipulate the human behavior, the electoral behavior. Because the electoral behavior is the most important part. Because today the political people, certain people declare election is a statistic. And manipulating human electoral by collecting intelligence from the people and using that unethical practice, that is you call a note for vote, or you call the caste system of casting vote, maybe occur. So what is your opinion about it all? I'm all telling all this panel. So what is the remedies, the future remedy you can do it for can you prevent it for the political people, your political parties? Thank you.
One more question, and then I'll let somebody else decide whose question to take. But and then I'll give our panelists a chance to answer this. How to influence political actors in all of this, and then one more question.
Yes. Good noon to everyone. I am Rinkesh Patel, Additional Collector from Gujarat. Ma'am, according to me, it is the time where it has become a fashion to use AI in all the fields, even where human intervention is must. In that case, some of the institutes or some people always say that use AI. My question is regarding the presentation, one of the slide of Mr. Albert. He mentioned that AI can be used in identification of voter using biometrics. Sir, we all know that when some biometrics are captured, in backend, a code is generated. Once again, it becomes huge data for any country of voters to be hacked or to be theft. Maybe the defense systems or defense agencies might be having such kind of data protection reinforcement. But do the EMBs can make such reinforcement to protect the data? Because when, suppose I am a voter, my data is with EMB and it is theft, then what about my privacy? So in these circumstances, how can we manage that data, or should we use AI? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And being Scandinavian, I will make sure that this session ends on time, which is 5 minutes from now, so everybody gets their lunch. And so what I'll do, I think those last two questions were actually really, really perfect to end this up with, which is that a lot of this is not in our hands, but in the hands of those political actors who are spreading this type of information, and where are we with that? But also what happens protecting voter data and all the data that is sitting on, and how do we work with those two things. So I will leave Alberto to close us out. And if there is a minute or two more, I might give one of our other panelists, but we are finishing at 1:15. So Alberto, you take the time you need.
Okay, thank you for the question. Data protection is one of the fundamental parts of getting AI right. And before getting into data protection, if any EMB will be asking me, should I use AI? My answer will be no. And then they will say, but can I use it? And I will again say, no, don't. Do you actually have a problem you need to solve, and there is no other way to solve it, or the best way to solve it is through an AI system? Then we might start thinking about use. But the answer, the default answer on any technology for an EMB should be no, don't use it. If it works, don't break it. And we have seen over and over and over again cases of countries who have adopted what looked like harmless technologies, and they have created a disaster. They have created a problem they didn't have. So I think that should be the mentality with the adoption of any technology, especially an evolving technology, such an obscure technology today, because we don't have the tools to interpret the results, as artificial intelligence. Data is another part of the picture. And if you remember my first slide, what I say, the three things that make us talk about AI today are transformers architecture, the new way to read things, computing power, and data. And I will say, I will get EMBs off the hook here. EMBs are not the responsible ones. It's the data legislation, the data protection legislation of each country, the one that has to protect the rights of voters and of everybody. There is a type of an international gold standard on data protection legislation, which is the GDPR legislation that was originally created by the European Union. And many countries have gotten those principles and gotten those principles and adapted to their reality. What the GDPR legislation says is, I also say in one of my slides, to use the principle of data minimization. So to basically only use the data that you need, don't get more data than the data that you actually need, and only collect data when it's proportional to your objective. So again, if you want to know the name and surname of voters, you don't need to collect their location, or you don't need to collect which party they voted last time, if you were able to do, or their religious affiliation. You don't need to collect that data if you only need the name. That's proportionality. That should be the principle. But this is not EMBs. This is the data authority in the country and the data regulation, the data protection regulation of every country. EMBs should be capable of influencing that regulation. Because I think I have a minute. I'm not a Scandinavian, so I might push a little bit beyond the line. About parties. And I go back to the same idea. Parties will misbehave, because that's what they do. They want to win elections. They will find any way to win an election. What we need to do is to make them accountable. And we tend to focus too much on the platform. I'm not here to defend the platforms, but we tend to focus too much on the platforms. And then say like, oh, Meta, they're very bad, and TikTok, they're Chinese, and blah, blah, blah. Well, they are just the means, but there is people behind trying to do this. There are parties, there are PR companies, they're just useful idiots that jump into this. So there are two things that we should, two ways to think about this. The first one is make parties accountable, make sure that if they use inauthentic behavior online, if they use techniques that are not allowed, that they pay for it. They pay legally for it. And also hold platforms accountable. And to do that, we need to get into algorithmic amplification. This is the whole core of the issue. It's about algorithmic amplification. It's not about he say, she say, this content is, we need to content moderate. No, content moderation is impossible. We need to get into algorithmic amplification. That's the tool that allows political parties to actually misbehave. So we need to make them accountable for what they do, make accountable the third parties that are used, the PR companies, and ask the tech companies, not ask them, force the tech companies to stop the type of algorithmic amplification that they're putting on the table. Sorry, I went 1 minute.
With this message of accountability, I am very pleased to close this session, and please thank our excellent panelists today. Thank you so much.
So I thank everyone for being a wonderful audience, and I also thank the panel members and especially our moderator, ma'am, that she has cooperated with us so much and gave great insight. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks a lot.